begin this video, I should really start by saying that there's going to be a few trigger warnings. Subjects that I'm going to be talking about are including rape in the context of a transsexual man, male to female to male, and the sort of attitude that the surrounding community gave him during this period of time in early 1993. Now, the story of Brandon Teena is pretty traumatic, but it is a story that got America to really pay attention to the issue of transsexual rights. Around the time of Matthew Shepard and Brandon Teena, the news in the country was focusing more on gay pride parades, and the country, yes, was coming together to rally around the cause of being pro-LGBT, but a lot of these small communities in the Midwest and the Deep South really rejected this, and they rejected it pretty hard. And no case highlights this better than the cases of Matthew Shepard and Brandon Teena. In the case of Brandon Teena, he was born a she. He was born Teena Brandon in a small town in Nebraska. And as a young girl, she started to realize that she did not feel comfortable in her own body. And at the age of 13, her friend called her and said, "I heard that you have an attractive brother at your house." And she didn't have a brother, but it appears the girl kind of mistook her for a man at some point. So she said, "Yeah, come over, I can get you a date with him." And she started dressing from this point on as a man. And Teena Brandon became Brandon Teena. She transitioned into a he. And again, I apologize if I accidentally misgendered during this video. I don't intend to. So Brandon Teena moved from Lincoln, Nebraska to the small town of Humboldt in southeast Nebraska, a very, very rural community. There is nothing out here for miles. And it was quickly discovered that he was actually biologically female. And on the evening of December 26, 1993, two men at a Christmas party ordered Brandon to pull his pants down. They said, "We heard you're a female, pull your pants down." After this, they forced him into their pickup truck, drove him into the countryside, and raped him near a meat processing plant, which I passed on the way here. Incredibly sad story. Actually, these two probably had intended to kill Brandon from the very start. They brought him back to their trailer and tried to make him wash in the shower, presumably so that the rape kit wouldn't show who had done it. And he escaped through the window to his friend's house. His friend immediately urged him to contact the sheriff, and that's exactly what he did. However, the sheriff started making fun of him. The sheriff was saying things like, "Oh, well, maybe if you hadn't had female private parts, maybe if you weren't born biologically female, they wouldn't have raped you." The sheriff was incredibly unwelcoming, incredibly unopen to the idea of even investigating who these men were. And some days later, the sheriff went to these men and essentially said, "Hey, Brandon came and reported you." And the sheriff described these men as good men. So a few days later, these good men decided to come down to this house behind me. The house is no longer there. It's been torn down by the community. As have any more memorials that have been set up. I put my own up. I hope it stays here for a while. And they broke into the house and found Brandon hiding with two of his friends. First, they tortured one of the friends into revealing the location where Brandon was. It was under the bed. They shot the friend. They shot Brandon through the head. The other friend walks in the front door and is trying to urge them not to go any further with it because they've already ruined their lives, but they shoot him as well. And they tuck the toddler in. And after they took the toddler in, they go back into town as if nothing had happened. Now, of course, these murders are quickly discovered, but almost no justice really came to this sheriff. And for years, he just stayed the sheriff of this town. And eventually, he finally had to settle in court and admit that he had caused essentially all of these damages. But if you take a look at these cases across the country, a lot of times the jury and the judge are very unwelcoming to the fact that hate crime has taken place. And if you also consider hate crime laws, I've heard it said that gays and transsexuals and just the generic LGBT across the board have the same rights as regular people, when that is entirely not true. Gays have the I say gays, but LGBT have the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Federal Protection Act. If you are beaten, if you are killed as a LGBT person, it is possible to take that to a federal level, but in a lot of these cases, these people are sex workers, these people are poor, and they can't afford a lawyer who is good enough to take this up to a federal level. I've known of cases recently in Texas in 2003 where a Korean War veteran was killed with a baseball bat by somebody shouting, "Die faggot." and he never faced any hate crime laws. And in 27 states, including Wyoming, including Nebraska, the state I'm in right now, Wyoming being the state where Matthew Shepard was crucified and burned alive in, they have no statewide hate crime laws. In fact, in Texas, when they still don't have hate crime laws there was one man who testified at the Matthew Shepard and James Burr Jr. Act in front of Congress. He said that he had been raped by two males shouting white power. I'm not even going to detail the rape, but there were, I think, something like 37 reconstructive surgeries that he needed to be done. And the senators and congressmen basically said, our hate crime laws are good enough. And after the act was passed, he'd faced so much criticism that he got a cruise to the Gulf of Mexico and threw himself over the edge of the boat. And he died. But it goes to highlight the issue that people still face across the country. Just the fact that all of the memorials that I've seen online that have been set up here have been torn down over the years. I hope that people don't tear down the cross, but I don't know. I can't make any judgments on this community, but I hope they don't tear down a Christian symbol based on it. But I would like to highlight the issue of the gravestone, because Brandon Teena was buried in Lincoln, Nebraska. And his gravestone said, and I can't make any judgments on the family, of course, I don't know where they stand in all this. Maybe they just didn't understand where he was coming from, but the gravestone says, sister, daughter, friend. And I think that this is a disservice to Brandon Teena because he wanted to live his life as a male. And it's a disservice to his friends who were welcoming to his lifestyle. And one of the reasons why I decided to drive 5 hours from Oklahoma City to Nebraska today is because I've seen so much hateful rhetoric. The hate crimes against LGBT people have surged. Since October, there have been over 4 transsexual people killed in Dallas, to which the police aren't really investigating. 2 of them died within the same radius. As far as I know, as of right now, filming the video, nobody's actually been arrested for this, and the only thing cops are doing is giving the LGBT community a few free karate lessons. And apart from this, I've also seen some of my friends on Facebook and social media sharing, funny pictures, supposedly. If you belong here, a picture of a male restroom, and I see you here, female restroom, then I'm going to put you here, and a picture of a walking chair. And this is sort of normal. I'm not saying this should be banned, because I believe in free speech, but this is normalizing hate crimes against people. This is making it funny. And it's not funny at all, but it's the sort of desensitization which people just put up with that it shouldn't be. And I'm saying when you see these hateful things, you deserve to call them out, as does the entire LGBT community, who has been faced with rising hate crimes in the past 4 years, who has been faced with a rising number of murders, and who, in fact, transsexual people suffer from a 41% suicide and murder rate, higher than any other demographic in the country. These are the demographics that deserve to be spoken up for, because a lot of times they're afraid to speak up for themselves because they fear for their lives. And I hope that someday they can just learn to, society can learn to live with them, really.
A heavy, corroded iron weight, a broken plastic shoehorn, and a red oval kettle. I mean, that's just what you find in the ocean. That's what you find where any...
right.